Hey guys, so today I want to start making my own videos, and one of the things that I want to cover the most is this David situation. I don't think there's a lot of streamers out there that are really covering this really thoroughly, with a few exceptions like Legal Mindset and maybe Tectone and Asmongold, which I don't think he really touched too heavily on. I want to be able to explain the whole process of what actually happened to Mr. Anthony Burke, also known as David D4vd. Now, it all started off, in early. I mean, the guy was born in 2005, by the way. Just to throw it out. So, he's what, over 20 years old now, and he's essentially, based on the facts of the matter, is that he's being charged with murder. And it's not just murder; it's the way he handled it's the way he treated Celeste's body after the fact, and so forth. But what really bothers me the most is the degree of what he did and what he was willing to do just to protect his career. Now, while most people will do anything to protect their career, a lot of people won't kill somebody to protect their career. That just doesn't seem like it's a logical explanation of doing the most horrible, horrific things that David has done. Now, it all started off with allegedly she had drugs in her system, and of course, that part I think is speculation, but I really think that he drugged her so that way she wouldn't resist as much, then stabbed her, and then proceeded to go to the Amazon, which is stupid, by the way, and proceed to get the materials that he needed to cut up her body, pretty much. Two chainsaws, which I think is crazy. Obviously, he doesn't have that much knowledge about chainsaws, and because he's buying two of them. And then he went and got a portable pool so he could do what he did. So therefore, he methodically thought, "Hey, this is going to be a mess. I need to be able to clean this up in a particular way." So he put a lot of thought into this. This is definitely premeditated. He definitely thought about this. And the reason why that he did what he did, allegedly, is because Celeste was going to expose him for what he was, a sick person. And then again, it doesn't give David the right to do what he did to this poor girl. So I went ahead and I wrote a list of all the things that he'd done, looking up court cases, facts of the matter of the case. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead over here and take you over to my post that I wrote here. And we're going to go over everything that we know so far about the case. Now, there is a court paperwork that I was able to find, which is right here. This right here is the official documentation from the Superior Court, State of California, for the County of Los Angeles. And it reads, background knowledge facts. On September 8, 2025, the manager of a tow yard where a Tesla had been impounded noted a strong smell of decay in the presence of flies coming from the vehicle. He notified the Los Angeles Police Department and the Hollywood Auto Detectives, who determined that Tesla was registered to the defendant through the Department Mental Resources. At the tow yard, the LAPD detectives opened the Tesla, and obviously what they found was a cadaver bag covered with insects. Inside the bag discovered a severely decomposed head and torso, and plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag containing the dismembered arms, legs. However, the victim's ring and pinky finger on her left hand was amputated and was not found on the Tesla, which means that it was a keepsake. A lot of times, and I've studied criminology way back, and what I know is that some killers, what they'll do is they'll keep a keepsake, which shows some sort of fascination, right? And he's made. Now, one other thing that I forgot to mention regarding to Celeste's finger being removed is not only because it was a keepsake for him, but possibly even more so the fact that his name was on Celeste's finger, which then shows more proof of him trying to cover up his tracks. Previous posts about, about how, how you gonna, if you love somebody so much and you want them to change, but they don't change, I gotta let you go. But I want to stay with you, because you know what I mean. Because I still believe that you might actually change. And he went on and on about that rant in a previous live stream video, which I did find, but I don't know where it is now. I got to look for it again. But he did make that kind of statement, and he also has made other posts that kind of like were questionable, to say the least. But sticking to the facts, certain people in this particular situation probably kept it for a keepsake, like a trophy, which I find disgusting, to say the least. But it was his way of trying to be like still with her in some weird, odd way. That's my thought. And anyways, the victim had met January 2022 when she was only 11 years old, and they began sexual relationship in November of 2023. The dude had sex with a 13-year-old minor, which is disgusting. The defendant was 18. Detectives learned that the victim had reported missing by the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, RCSD, by her family, who lived in Lake Elsmore in February and April of 2024. The RCSD telephonically contacted the defendant after they identified the phone number. The victim's phone records belonged to him. During the call, the defendant claimed he had spoken to the victim on February 14th, 2024, but stated he was unaware she was a minor. How the fuck are you not gonna know? Give me a break. And so we go down this road where he's essentially being a CP creepy person. Now, she was a minor and only had met the victim once in person in November of 2023. However, the defendant showed up with deputy's yearbook photo and victim had it on his cell phone. Although claimed it was unaware where the victim was at that time, she returned home 2 days later. Despite being informed by law enforcement the victim was only 13, the defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned to home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. The defendant drove to Lake Elsmore and paid the junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone the defendant purchased so they could stay in contact. You went to someone's school. David went to someone's school, or that girl's school, to give the cell phone, another cell phone to her, so they could stay in contact. That's kind of obsessive and controlling. That's a red flag for me. In the summer weekends at his home in Hollywood Hills, they traveled with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. Text exchange between the victim and the defendant contains reference to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B pregnancy contraceptives. There are also explicit photographs documenting and corroborating their sexual relationship in November of 2024, and the defendant and victim broke up. Although they continue to communicate in text messages, suggests also they continue to have sexual relations. Again, disgusting. On April 23rd of 2025, it's likely the date of the victim's death and when all her cellular activity had ceased. This night prior to April 22nd, 2025, the defendant's victim engaged in a lengthy argument describing in detail in their text messages. The messages have revealed that the victim's jealousy over the defendant's relationship with other women. As the defendant led to her believe that they had a future together, she became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with the defendant to end the career and destroy his life. The defendant's first studio album was due to be released on April 25th. Ironically, the same day, 2 days before she died, had emerging multi-million-dollar career already in progress. He also had multiple production endorsements, which were highly profitable. So this right here would establish a motive, why a person would kill another person. And usually, it's not always required, but usually a motive is required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt as addendum to the evidence that they have before them. Now, so approximately 8:40 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, the defendant sent an Uber to transport the victims from her Lakeshore home, Senior home, if I'm saying that right, to his residence. They communicated before during her Uber ride, which dropped her off at the defendant's Hollywood Hills home around 10 p.m. At approximately 10:30 p.m., the defendant sent text message to the victim inquiring where she was. The people contended this part of the defendant's premeditated plan to cover up the murder, and she was already dead by this time. And it goes on and on and on. But what really gets me is that her fingers have not been recovered. The defendant then placed her head and torso in a cadaver bag he purchased and placed the limbs in the garbage bag and then disposed the front of the trunk, laying the cadaver bag on top. For several weeks, possibly months, the defendant's victim's body decomposed inside the Tesla. Friends and business associates and others noticed a strong smell of decay and around the home vehicle leaving the concert tour in July. At the end of July, he parked his Tesla on the street around the same corner of his home. The LAPD served a search warrant at the defendant's home on 1368 Doheny Place on September 17th, 2025, after the victim identified by Los Angeles County Medical Examiner on September 16, 2025. Inside the garbage bag, detectives discovered evidence consistent with the dismemberment of the victim's body and an inflatable pool, which contained multiple linear cuts. Several biological samples tested positive for blood were collected within the garage area. DNA analysis determined that the various samples matched the victim's unique genetic profile. And on December 9, 2025, the medical examiner ruled that the victim's death was a homicide caused by 2 penetrating injuries to the torso. And then we have the evidence. Lots of evidence. He had 40 terabytes of CSAM, which is like CP, bro. Like, that's like horrible. And while the possible charges could be proven were not filed, the CSAM is proof that their ongoing sexual relationship with the other victims was 13 and 14 years old. Numerous text messages between the defendant and the victim's evidence and their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B emergency contraceptive. Messages through March 2025 proved that the defendant continued to manipulate the victim as she messaged, all we do is have sex and just hang up, man. I want more than that for myself. These messages were obtained from the defendant's iCloud data. And so, I mean, the more I read about this and the more you guys read about this, the more disturbing this becomes. It seemed like David was a very obsessive, compulsive, and, human being who had issues himself, like severe mental illness. And that doesn't absolve this individual from what he did. You know, this person, Celeste, wanted to have a normal life. She wanted to have the traditional, seems like a very traditional life. And she was also a kid. Let's be real, she was a kid. She was a fucking kid. And so, that being said, there was issues with her as well. She was a runaway. Her parents did everything that they apparently could to try to stop her from this. And this gentleman continued to not only undermine the parents, but completely just manipulate the entire situation. And there was red flags in the beginning. And she didn't see, and she probably started to see those red flags. And she did what any other kid would do. Oh, I'm gonna just tell on you. You know what I'm saying? And that was her mistake, unfortunately. She should have just kept quiet. Now, again, I'm not defending David by any means the stretch. I'm just saying, like, if she didn't say those things directly to him and actually, like, talk to her parents about this, talk to her mother, her father about this, maybe it might have been a different outcome. Again, it doesn't absolve what David did. What David did was absolutely disgusting. And the fact that there's so much evidence against him, it'd be reasonable to say that this is a 4-corner case. Well, what is a 4-corner case? A 4-corner case is the term used to describe that the prosecutor has all the evidence to pretty much convict the defendant of these crimes, right? There's really no obscurities. There's no ambiguity. Sorry. There's really no, it's all laid out there pretty much for everyone to see. There's no questioning this or questioning that. Like, there's a tremendous amount of burden of proof. And so, that being said, I think when it came to the preliminary hearing, I think that the prosecutor let it happen to describe what was actually going on behind closed doors. So that way the court and the jury can all, I don't think the jury is in it at this point, but pretty much the court can acknowledge and put on record, like, this is what happened. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, it's just truly egregious thing. And the list goes on, guys. Defendant's cellular activity and communication derived from the defendant's iPhone. They're able to pick this stuff up. The government knows when the police have the ability to go into your phone, wiretap your phone, provided they had a warrant, which they did, and did a video surveillance of the defendant driving a Tesla on July 29th. Did pretty much. And pretty much tracking his phone record. They had his phone records, tracking his phone. They had proof that the defendant purchased a delivery purchase Postmates and a shovel from Home Depot. Now, is buying a shovel against the law? No. But when you buy an inflatable pool, a chainsaw, and a fucking shovel, and they did DNA testing on the inflatable pool, the chainsaw, and the shovel, well, it's pretty obvious that, you know, he did this, provided that they did more testing. And so in the conclusion, they believe that this man is guilty. And I don't know, I think he's guilty. So, I mean, any grown ass dude that's trying to like lure women or lure minors in a fucking server. It played Fortnite and shit in a Discord server is pretty disgusting. And I'm gonna continue to cover this, guys. I'm gonna continue to cover this. You know what I mean? This guy rose to fame because of a TikTok, and romantic homicide song that he started his career on as a video game streamer on Twitch. You know what I'm saying? And this victim, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, 14 years old from Lake Elsinore, California, she reported be missing multiple times in the early 2024 at the age of 13, and again on April 5th. Court filings, DA, Hartford press conference, Burke allegedly began, blah, 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 which we already talked about. Multiple penetration injuries after threatening to expose his relationship, with prosecutors did protect his lucrative musical career. And then allegedly dismembered her body. He absolutely did. I can't see anyone else that's doing this. Now, the special circumstances lying awake, financial gain, murdering a witness, his continuously sexual abuse of a minor, lewd acts of a minor under the age of 14, mutilation of a human remains, and the use of a deadly weapon. He pled not guilty at the arraignment, and he's head without bail trial pending the investigation and pending the trial. The actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas, as his defendant said, and he was not the cause of her death. Who else would have done that? Now, do I believe that he deserves the death penalty? Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely think this man deserves a death penalty for what he did. The level of the premeditation. He decided to go to the most extreme route. So yeah, I believe, I'm hoping, based on the evidence and based on what we read today, guys, I really think he deserves the death penalty. And it'd be the first death penalty in California in history in the last 20 years. I think the last one was 2006, was the last death penalty done in California. So I really hope they go for that. I really, really do. I think that's the only way for justice to be served in this case. And normally I'm not for the death penalty because I think there are some prosecutors that have used the death penalty very loosely. There's been plenty of cases where, granted, they've done horrible shit, but they don't deserve the death penalty. They just deserve to be in jail for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? And living with the consequences. David, I don't think cares about living with the consequences. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think he also deserves the death penalty. And it's truly egregious. I'm sure there was red flags that were done on Twitch that probably was not called out by Twitch. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure at some level Twitch has data on their servers of him talking to Celeste when she was a minor, in 2022, 2023. You know what I mean? It just goes to show you that this is what happens when you don't have accountability. You know what I mean? There are just things that you need to, that organizations, entities, and even the individual themselves need to be held accountable. You know what I mean? We can't let this type of violence to continue. And it's as a father, if I lost my own daughter, because I got 2 daughters, guys. All right, I got 4 kids. I would be fucking heartbroken. And I would also go after the motherfucker that did it without a question. And I would gladly serve jail time, knowing that I would do everything in my power to protect my kids. You know what I'm saying? And if the parents knew this level of craziness, knew that Celeste kept running away to this dude's house and knew where he was, I don't know why they didn't do anything more. But then again, I'm not in that circumstance, so I really can't. This is just speculation. It seems like the parents did everything that they possibly fucking could. They did everything they possibly fucking could to stop this from happening. And I feel for these parents. I feel for them. I'm really, really sorry what happened to your daughter, man. I really am. It's tough for me, guys. It really is. Because I couldn't imagine what they're going through right now. I can only think about it. Perhaps try to ponder it. But to actually know, actually be in their same mindset and understand their perception, I couldn't be in that spot. Couldn't think about that way they do. You know? So I'm going to continue to cover this, guys. And we're going to cover a lot of other things as time goes on. Because I think there's so many things that are not being covered that should be covered on stream. Everyone's always gloating about Twitch streamer drama, this, that, and the other. And it's just like everyone's doing the same thing. And I just want to do something a little bit different. I want to put things into perspective, you know. And I don't fake my emotions and be like, oh my God. Look at, I am who I am, and I'm just going to be myself when I make these videos. And that's all there is to it. Because people are tired of, they're tired of fake streamers, number one. They're tired of people, you know, shifting the goalpost a little bit to make their streams better. They're just tired of all the bullshit. And so with that being said, guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching my video. And you guys are tuning into The Outpost. I'll see you next time. Peace.